Hello and welcome to LionWing Talks, a weekly show where we discuss all things LionWing, tabletop games, Japanese games, and localization. I'm your host, Bradley Hailstorm, founder and president of LionWing. This is episode 21. We've got a little bit of a content light show for tonight. It's for a couple reasons. One, we didn't get the huge, robust number of listener submitted questions we normally do. But also, I'll just jump into a little bit of like LionWing behind the scenes update stuff. We are like super busy preparing this next Kickstarter. If you've been in the Discord chat, you probably saw me say yesterday or the day before that, Midnight Saga was scheduled to be our July Kickstarter. Some stuff is happening there that we're not ready to talk about just yet. It needed to be bumped to a later time in the year because of said stuff that we're not going to talk about just yet. And in its place is this other game, which we haven't revealed yet. The thing about it is, we finished Midnight Saga's Kickstarter campaign. Like, graphics, tiers. We had already sent out review copies of the game. I mean, this thing was done, right? So to have to pivot to something else when you are, for all intents and purposes, 100% finished with the Kickstarter build and everything that goes along with putting a game on Kickstarter, and then you have to start the process from zero again, is a little tiring. So never before have we done, literal back-to-back Kickstarters. You're only going to see one Kickstarter right away, but our workload has been two Kickstarters back to back. We put months between our Kickstarters for numerous reasons, but one of it is just because of the resource and the time commitment that is required to put on a good Kickstarter. I have a big thing with imaging, brand image. Everything sort of has to be perfect when we go to Kickstarter in terms of all the detail work, all the graphics looking just the way that they need to look, having all of our I's dotted and T's crossed. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I think if you ask some of the people who've worked on projects with me, they probably hate me sometimes because of that. But because that's the way I am, I demand a lot more of the folks that I work with. And I demand a lot of myself. So to do two full Kickstarters back to back has just been pretty exhausting. I haven't been in the chat very much lately, probably over the past month and a half because of that. And that also means that shows like tonight are a little bit shorter because the shorter the show is, the more time I have to either catch my breath or to continue to work on Kickstarter stuff. We are nearly finished with the Kickstarter design. We've got most of the graphics in place, but now we're kind of like going through our feedback process, our QA process of what that page is going to look like, getting feedback on it, implementing changes, really picking it apart. And I would say this is probably the worst part about preparing a Kickstarter is all of the detail work that goes into the last couple of weeks. Because we do kind of get into the nitty gritty, and it's not fun. It's fun putting together a Kickstarter on a macro level. You start thinking about the vision, the tone, the aesthetic, how you're going to present the information, what information you're going to present, how to frame your game in the best light. Like all that stuff is fun, but it's also very kind of like, top down, 30,000 feet up kind of stuff. Now though, crunch time, as I call it, this is not fun stuff. This is small tweaks, but a lot of small tweaks. I would rather deal with big tweaks than small ones because the small tweaks almost feel like they never end. Because it's like, hey, let's do this, or let's try this, or like, let's slightly change the angle of that graphic. Okay, you change the angle of that graphic, that looks like trash. Let's change it back. Okay, that's still not doing it for me. Let's try something else. And then the person is like, okay, so what do you want to try? And I'm like, I have no idea, just not the thing that's on the page right now. And so it's this really tedious process of getting into the minutia of making sure that that page looks exactly as it's supposed to. And that's probably where people really hate working with me. I think I'm pretty easygoing, all things considered, but the final 3-week stretch, I'm probably a bit of a bear because I do sort of request, demand perfection. And so this show getting back to the original statement. It's going to be a little bit shorter because it's going to give me a chance to probably not catch a breather tonight. I'll probably go right back to working on some page graphics. What we've got planned for you though in July is really exciting. It's unlike anything else we've really done, I think. In fact, to jump into our community questions, we got a question about this today, which I actually didn't even add to my run a show here. So I'll put up in Discord. Aiken asked, is it time for that next project reveal / teaser? So, Aiken, thanks for that question. I always feel like you're asking me questions about projects and trying to really kind of squeeze information out of me in very subtle, tricky ways. I appreciate that. I appreciate the enthusiasm and the excitement about what we have planned. So these questions are fun, even if I can't fully answer them, which is like not fun. So we are not ready to reveal the project just yet. However, I am, after all, after further consideration, I am going to put up a teaser channel with the code name, the project code name, on Monday. So the speculation can begin Monday morning at noon. I guess it's not morning any longer. You get the idea. 12 p.m. ET there. We'll have our teaser channel up. Let the guessing games begin. This time, however, I will not be offering any sort of responses. So, the tricky part about Midnight Saga is I for whatever reason, I decided to comment on certain guesses, and it kind of left me wide open. I showed my hand a little bit because sometimes I jump in and I would definitely deny oh no, it's not that thing, because I didn't want people to get their hopes up too much. So I jumped in and said, no, it's not that. But then when the time came where someone, asked oh, is it Story of Faltitia? Obviously they didn't know the name was Midnight Saga because that's a localized name. But, all I could do is be silent because I was like, oh, I don't think I want to confirm or deny that. But that was basically confirming it, right? So this time, no help from me. I hope you're ready for it, especially you, Aiken. It'll probably be a fairly quick turnaround from when we reveal the codename channel and then when we actually announce the game. But what we're waiting on, we would have announced the game already, but we need that Kickstarter landing page to be up. And the only way that we can put that Kickstarter landing page up is once we have fulfilled one of our 3 outstanding projects, Wild Hunt Festival, Gun and Gunner, Inbred Machine. Obviously, it's Wild Hunt Festival that's going to be fulfilled. But we're waiting to fulfill that before Kickstarter allows us to have another project go live for them to review and sign off on the next project being put up on Kickstarter. So with Midnight Saga, I had made the choice that, hey, we're gonna flash this up, we're gonna announce it, but we're not gonna have a landing page. I will do a landing page later on down the road because I knew that Wild Hunt Festival was a ways off. I thought Kickstarter was going to allow me to put up another one, and they said, yeah, no, that's not happening. You got to fulfill one. So we announced the game, no landing page, and it was fine or whatever, but I won't be doing that again. So this time, landing page with announcement. I don't know about all of you, but I'm the most excited about a game that's coming to Kickstarter when it's first announced, and then the first day that it's live. And then, of course, when I follow the campaign, I'm stoked about stretch goals and engaging, whatever. But if anyone's like me, then it's you get that announcement and I immediately want to be notified. I want to go to a landing page. I want to click that notification button. And then I won't think about that game again until I get that email saying oh, okay, this game is live or whatever. So I'm assuming a lot of people are like that. And thus we will have the landing page ready. So you can probably expect to get back to your question, Aiken, you can probably expect a full reveal. Let's look at the calendar here. So we're going to do a codename reveal on the 28th. You can probably expect a full reveal. Not next week, either the week after that or the week after that. So the week of the 5th or the week of the 12th. The week of the 12th seems safer because some of this is dependent on Wild Hunt Festival being fulfilled. So the 12th seems safer, but it could be the week of the 5th or the 12th. You'll just have to stay tuned for that. It's a cool project. I'm like dying to talk about it. I really am. I think I mentioned on a previous show, someone had asked me like, "Oh, what's your favorite LionWing game?" And my answer was probably an unusual one, and that is my favorite LionWing game is the one that I'm working on right now, and it's always the one that I'm working on right now. So my favorite LionWing game will always change because it'll always be the one that I'm putting all of my effort into, and that's this project. So this project has been pretty demanding. It's been in development for a long time, like a really long time. Probably, I would say its development started. Well, I would say that its development cycle was longer than Testament, and Testament was our longest development cycle. So I've been sitting on this project for a long time, which is like, kind of the terrible part of this job is like you've got all this cool stuff lined up that you can't talk about. And that kind of thing is bearable when you know, like, okay, I'm going to be able to talk about this in 3 months. It's not bearable when you're like, okay, I'm going to be able to talk about this in 18 months. That's hard for me because I do get so excited about the projects we work on. So right now, that next project is my favorite project because it has to be. We are full steam ahead. I'm ready for the marketing push, the PR push, all that comes along with getting this thing to Kickstarter. I'll be glad when I'm able to jump on to LionWing Talks and field questions about the project and just talk about the project with more depth. Anyway, so I'm kind of working backwards with questions today because that was the last question that was submitted for this evening's show. But now I'm going to jump back to the first question that was submitted, and this was a question that was submitted last week. I really wish that door upstairs would stop opening. I don't know if you guys can hear that squeak, but it's absolutely driving me insane. Technically question 1, but tonight it's question 2. Can we get a rough distribution of backers per region? Does that distribution change per project? So I'll answer in reverse order. The distribution does not really change much per project, which is both surprising and not at all surprising. It seems that no matter the Japanese project, people are going to show up for it in pretty much the same percentages per territory, regardless of what that game is. So, that door is driving me nuts. So the distribution doesn't really change for our projects. That's probably different for every company. It's probably different for the type of product you're selling. It's probably different depending on the overall audience for your game, the audience that shows up for your brand, the types of stuff you put out. So maybe for some companies, it does vary depending on project, but it hasn't for us. The disparity in percentages per territory from one project to the next for us has been pretty negligible, which is cool and not cool at the same time. Sorry, I'm I'm sending a text to my wife to tell her to stop opening that door. So this is a stream first. It's a little raw tonight, folks. It's a little raw tonight. But to the first part of that question, can we get a rough distribution of backers per region? So far, we're seeing about between 70 and 75% of our backers are from North America. And then about 15 to 20% are probably closer to 20% are in an EU region. And then the remaining 5 to 10% are kind of spread out throughout Asia, South America, and Australia. Of course, you're going to get outlying, backers from territories and domains of the world that don't fit any of that, but it's a pretty small number, pretty negligible. So the last couple percentages kind of distributes with those regions. So we're heavily a North American company when you just look at, on paper, backers. I have seen, although negligible, I have seen growth with our EU audience from project to project. It stays pretty close with how it was, with the previous project, but with each one we actually have grown a little bit with the EU. So that's cool. Question 2. I should just say question 3 because we've already had question 1. I'm just looking at my show notes here. Question 3. Just now catching up on yesterday's LionWing talks. Bradley, you talk at length about a Valkyria Chronicles minis game, which sounds awesome. It kind of feels like it could be something like a boxed game from GW, such as Adeptus Titanicus. Yeah, so, I've just sort of like fantasy booked what it would be like to publish a Valkyria Chronicles game when it comes to like minis, because I think I talked about, I've also thought how you could utilize that IP in a variety of different ways in the tabletop industry. But as I said, I'm most drawn to that IP being utilized for a minis game. And so I think there's sort of 2 routes you could go. You could go the more traditional minis route, and that is sell packs of squads with selling individual sort of captains. And I think that would be a fine model. But selling something a bit more contained, something that feels a bit more board gamey and less like a miniatures war game, might have more appeal to people, just because your audience is probably going to be fairly niche when you're publishing a minis game based on not only a Japanese IP, but a pretty obscure Japanese IP. I mean, most people don't know of Valkyria Chronicles. Certainly, if you kind of run in the circle that I think most of you probably run in, myself included, we know plenty of people that know Valkyria Chronicles. But especially the larger tabletop gamer audience, probably is like what did you say? Valkyria what? And so because of that, it would probably be an easier sell to kind of put that all into one box and then release larger expansion boxes to go along with that. I guess I'm a little bit old school when it comes to my miniatures games, and I like the more traditional model of like minis wargaming. Like, let me buy a rule book separately, and then like let me go buy and cobble together units to form my army, or in this case, in Valkyria's case, a squad, and let me have management over like, the nitty gritty of that. Don't give me like a big box with all these different types of characters. Like, I want to be able to have some say over like who I'm going to buy because I want to build an army in a very specific way. But I just don't think that would be the popular way to go. So I think something like one of GW's boxed games would be a fine model. I think it would probably be the wiser model for something like this. But you could probably figure out a way to make anything work. While the audience for Valkyria Chronicles is niche, and it's an even smaller demographic of folks who know and love that game and also just happen to play minis games, I still think that the audience would probably be there for you to do something with either of those types of minis games. Question 4, not related to anything that we do here. Is cereal a soup? I guess it could be. I would never, however, say, oh, hey, you want some soup? Person says, oh yeah, soup sounds good. And then I pull out a box of Captain Crunch. So for that reason alone, I would answer absolutely not. Cereal is not soup. Follow-up question. And is a hot dog a sandwich? No. A hot dog is a hot dog. You know? Sure, it's meat sandwiched between two pieces of bread. But a hot dog is not a sandwich. Question 6. How do you feel knowing Customs decided to clear your product right after you got mad at them? So I think this came from Fern. I think I did see that when he sent it. I just happened to be in the Discord at the time. And I think we got the word that Customs had cleared Wild Hunt Festival. Like a day and a half, 2 days after I kind of went on a tirade about my frustration of it being hung up in Customs for close to a month. So I'd like to believe that someone at U.S. Customs watches this show and that person has enough leverage and pull within Customs to say, hey, Bradley Hailstorm from LionWing Publishing really pissed at us right now. Trust me, guys, we don't want that. Let's pick up the pace here. So how do I feel knowing Customs decided to clear the product right after I got mad at them? I feel pretty good. You know, sometimes anger gets things done. Question 7. What controller interest do you have in including previous Kickstarter projects, including any Kickstarter exclusives, as add-ons to upcoming Kickstarter projects? Yeah, so this is so tricky. I love the idea of being able to allow folks to do like a catch-up pledge where they can pick up all of our games, or they can pick up one of our games or whatever. If you're backing Maiden Knight Saga, there's an option for you to add on a copy of Wild Hunt Festival or Gun and Gun or Embryo Machine or Sinome Coliseum. I love that idea. It is a bit of a logistical nightmare, especially if you are fulfilling product with separate or 2 different or 3 different companies and your supply is scattered all around the US or all around the world, whatever the case may be. It gets hard because you can't, I think people think it's a lot easier than it actually is, because it's like, oh, cool, I can just add on this game to my current order. I'm back in Maiden Knight Saga. Yeah, throw me on some Wild Hunt Festival there, and like I'll get a reduced shipping rate because like throw them in the same box. And it's like, nah, that's not how this works at all. Like if you're lucky, and this is the exception, most certainly not the rule. If you're lucky, you might have a situation like that, but most of the time that is not a situation for a company like us who doesn't. We don't have like our own warehouse. I don't have like, I don't pay for warehouse space that is strictly LionWing. That's not how we do things. So it's really hard for us to do it. The only way that we could do something like that is, yeah, you could add it to your order, but you'd have to pay separate shipping. And, people get weird about shipping anyway, because shipping is so high right now. And so like anything that they deem as being unacceptable in the shipping realm can really put them off from backing a game or throwing in add-ons to their order or what have you. So it gets a little weird when you're like, yeah, you can do that, but by the way, like you're going to have to pay shipping separately, and that game's going to show up at a different time than the other game shows up. Now, some companies will do like yeah, you can throw on one of our previous games to your current pledge, but both games are going to ship out at the same time. And those are companies that ship from the same place every time. Most of the time they have their own warehouse or they rent warehouse space, and it's easier to do that logistically, resource-wise, financially, etc., because then you can save money because both products are going in the same parcel and you'll be able to catch a break shipping wise. But I think it's way more interesting and more appealing to me as a backer if like I can add on a game and I can get that game that's already been out pretty much immediately while I wait for, the other game that I'm backing to get through development and get shipped to me. That just, a lot of places don't do that. So I think we could do that, but it does get messy. And then you've got the issue of royalties and figuring out how it all breaks down per royalty and licensing contract. Because let's say we've got Made Knight Saga on Kickstarter. Well, like whatever we make from that campaign, Laugh Sketch is entitled to a royalty percentage that we've agreed upon that is written into a contract. But then let's say we're adding on Wild Hunt Festival. Well, now all of a sudden I've got to go in, if someone adds on an order, I've got to go in, I've got to find that add-on. And then I've got to figure out, all right, so now I have to pay Liner Note their contract royalty from this other Kickstarter campaign. And that sounds easy to do when I'm just explaining it as like a one-off scenario. But if we provide that option to everyone and we get 1,500, 2,000 backers, and let's say only a fraction of people do that, but let's say it's 200. Okay, now I've just created a lot of legwork to do, a lot of math to do, and the reporting to those entities gets really messy too. Because it's not like I just pay a quarterly royalty to all of these designers and I just wire them money and say like, here's what the total was. Like, no, I've got to present to them like financial sheets, accounting for all of the transactions. And so it's a lot of legwork. It's pretty resource intensive. And when you're a small company like LionWing is, where I'm basically doing everything, I am oftentimes looking for ways to take work off of my plate, not put more work on it, even if putting more work on it might mean we make a tiny profit by someone adding on a previous game to the current Kickstarter pledge. So it's tough. We do have control in most cases to do that, but it's messy for all of the aforementioned reasons. Now you will find some partners, some business partners, some designers, some Japanese publishers that do not at all want another product being featured on the Kickstarter you're running for their game. Now, you tend to run into this with more established circles, design circles, more established publishers, arc like Karakawa, things of that nature. You're not even going to mention that as an option to them because you know what the answer is already, and it'll probably be offensive to ask that. However, with smaller designers, they're very much so open. They're like, yeah, well, cool, whatever. Hey, that might bring more eyes to this project. Let's do it. So you really kind of have to know your audience as well to know if you do have any control over being able to offer that option to backers. Question 8, can we expect official LionWing merch in the future, such as logo shirts, coffee cups, mouse pads, etc.? I've thought about this many, many times. First, my first response is we're not there yet. We've got a nice fan base. I love our fan base right now, but it's not like a fan base who is going to be big enough to allow us to offer those types of supplementary merchandise pieces, because everything that you just mentioned there is expensive to produce. Shirts are like the absolute worst business decision if you're looking to make a tiny bit of a profit. I mean, you don't make any profit off of shirts unless you're ordering shirts in massive quantities. I'm talking like in the thousands. But if you're going to produce 50, 100, 300, 400 shirts, first off, can you sell them? And also, secondly, if you sell them, is it going to be worth your trouble? And the answer is typically no for a company our size. Shirts are so expensive, so expensive. And people are only going to ever pay so much for a shirt, even if they recognize like this is a boutique company, they're doing a small print run of these shirts. I'm willing to spend $30, even $35 on a t-shirt because I like this brand, I like this company, I like what they stand for, I like their products, whatever. But that's the super fan. Even a casual fan probably isn't going to do that. So how many orders can you actually get? And also, how much can you reasonably charge to cover your costs while also not gouging your customer? Because yeah, you could. The funny thing is the cost of a shirt is about $28 to produce, and that's like a decent shirt. I don't want to like just hand out the absolute bottom of the barrel shirts, especially if people are paying money for them. So your cost is about $28, and that's before shipping, right? And depending on how many shirts you order, that's gonna, drive up your shipping cost by a couple $100s. So it's not actually $28. It's probably closer to $29 when all said and done, maybe $29.50. So the most I would ever feel comfortable charging anyone, and this I don't really even feel comfortable with, is like $35. Okay, so you're gonna go through all this work. You're gonna get a design made. You're gonna rent storage space for these shirts because like they got to go somewhere, right? You're not going to blow through them all, so they're going to sit somewhere, and usually that's going to be in a warehouse. And if you don't own the warehouse, you're paying for your space in that warehouse. They're going to sit there for you to make $5. At the end of the day, that LionWing is a business, and the only way that we can continue to do the things we do is if we make some money in the process. You got to keep money coming in to be able to pump product out, and so shirts just don't make a lot of sense. Now, things like coffee cups, mouse pads, a little bit more reasonable. Mouse pads are, to get a decent one, you're talking about a neoprene custom mouse pad. Not as cheap as it sounds, surprisingly. But you can do more with that. You can do more with that because your margins are a little wider, which is nice. They're not as slim as they are on t-shirts. Coffee cups, pretty easy. And coffee cups are pretty cost effective. The problem is it's hard to get a custom coffee cup looking good. Like sure, we could slap the LionWing logo, with the LionWing name and the Leonix 4 mecha on there. And we could put that against a white coffee cup, and it'd probably look pretty damn sleek. But I think most of the time people want a coffee cup that's very catching to the eye. And that costs money. It costs money to design, but it also costs money to be able to manufacture at a high level. As I said before, I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to art presentation. And so I never want to put out something that is going to reflect poorly on our image. And so for me, when it comes to merch, if I can't do it at the highest quality, I'm just not interested in doing it personally. But to do it at the highest quality means your margins are thinner, regardless of the product you're selling. So this is a really long way of saying I would love to be able to offer supplementary merchandise, because I know there are some people out there who would dig that kind of thing. Hell, I would dig seeing people wear a LionWing emblazoned shirt. That is very, very, very appealing to me. But I also know that it takes time and resources, and it takes time and resources away from other things that actually need that time and actually need those resources. So maybe down the line when we're bigger, I will more seriously consider it. And it won't just be like, I wish I could do that thing, but it's not cost effective right now. And instead at that point in our growth, it'll be, I want to do that and I can do that. And I can eat some of the cost because I know we're not going to like make anything off of this. And I don't need that any longer because we've got however many products and each product selling exactly as intended. We're in all the retail stores we need to be in. We're in all of the web stores we need to be in. Our web store is popping off. So there are a lot of things that have to align to be at that point. And that's just not where we're at right now. Laniston, hey, you are, you just followed the channel today, I believe. And I think I've seen you on Kickstarter as well in the comments. I can see your avatar right now. I think it's like a spiky redheaded character. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's right. You said, my wife has a heat press. Thankfully, I can make my own shirts or mugs and not sell them. Yes. Yeah. So, yes, there we go. All right. Disgaea. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. Question 9. Any words of condolence in light of Ben 2's recent departure? Yeah, Ben's a cool guy. I think I speak on behalf of everyone when I say he's going to be missed. He's already missed. I mean, you can already tell he's not in the server any longer. He brought an energy and a passion to the server that was undeniable. Ben's a cool dude. I also respect people's decision to step away from social media and from the screen. I think it's healthy for us all to do that at times, to unwind and refresh, come back with a clearer head, clearer eyes, that kind of thing. It's easy to get lost in social media. And so I totally respect, support, and encourage that kind of thing. And this was Ben's time to do that. I hope we see him down the road, though. I hope he still checks in on the stream from time to time. And do a quick look in the channel here. He's not with us tonight, but yes, I certainly hope that we see him down the road. Even if he tried to tell me that The Girl Who Leapt Through Time was only a 7 out of 10. That is not true. That is not true. That is a 9 out of 10 movie. At minimum. At minimum. Question 10. Do you prefer Macross or Robotech? Neither. Neither. I think both are pretty bad. Yeah. Not for me. Before my time. This is just my opinion. Trash art. Old art. Nah, I'm good. I'm good on both. Come for the news, stay for the bad takes on anime. Last question. Hey, I think this was from Rogue. Rogue's always checking on me. My personal life. How was your Father's Day? My Father's Day was good. It was a very busy weekend. Very busy weekend. So we did some fun stuff. We saw the people that we needed to see, that we wanted to see. We went out with my wife's dad, and we went bowling, which was cool because my son had never been bowling before. But it was very timely because we went to the bowling alley, and I love bowling alleys because they're like the last vestiges of a bygone era, right? Like you step into a bowling alley, it's like stepping into a time portal. Like I walked in, I was like, okay, like if you just dropped me here and you gave me no context about what was happening in the world, I'd be like, oh, cool, it's 1986. Like they just never get updated, except the arcades get updated. So, we had just come off of E3 week, right? And one of the Switch announcements during the Nintendo Direct was that Cruisin' Blast was coming to Switch. And if you're an old arcade kid like I am, then you clearly remember like Cruisin' USA and all of its variants, right? In the arcade and its ports to consoles. So it was really cool at E3 when they were like, oh yeah, we're bringing Cruisin' Blast to Switch. Because it's like, oh my gosh, like the world has been missing arcade racers for so long. It's just like this genre that is, it's dead. Like, I don't know when it happened, but like the death of the arcade racer certainly was a thing that happened at some point. And it's too bad because the world is missing out by not having an abundance, not even just a few. We need an abundance of arcade racers on consoles. So it was cool to not only get an arcade racer, but to have like this legacy racer in Cruisin' Blast. And so it was even cooler. We walk into this bowling alley and we go up to our lane. Right behind us, Cruisin' Blast. So my son played his first arcade that night. It was Cruisin' Blast. It's a terrible game, but I mean, just a bad game, but perfect for a 4-year-old because you can't fail. There's no like crashing and going the wrong way. There's no like crashing and getting stuck in an object, having to reverse. There's not even a brake. There's no brake in the game. There are 2 things that you engage with in that game: the steering wheel and the gas pedal. The only way you can brake is you just let off the gas, right? Now I'm hoping there are some changes made for the console release, but like in arcades. It was perfect for him, and it's probably perfect for a bowling alley for people like that don't play games and just want to like get down on a quick like 2 minute arcade romp through this crazy racing environment. But like if you look at it as a game, not good, not good at all. But it was super cool because like that night was not only fun, spending time with her dad and bowling, and my son going bowling for the first time, but also playing his first arcade game, and it being a game that was just talked about at A3. So it was rather serendipitous. There's an arcade racer for free on Epic Store tomorrow. Hey, Landison, what is the name of that arcade racer? And you know, there have been a number of like, you know, indie projects that have been kind of homages to old arcade racers. I'm trying to think of one. Oh gosh. I keep wanting to say Bring Me the Horizon, but that is most definitely a metal band. But maybe it's Horizon Chase, something to that effect. There have been a couple that have attempted to recapture the spirit of the arcade racer. I would say by and large they've been competent, but they don't have the magic. You know, they're lacking that soul that a lot of them used to have. I think the last arcade racer that I really was like, this is fantastic was, oh gosh, it was I think it was Sega Rally Evolution. And then I think they changed the name for the PS3 release because that was the 360 release. I think the PS3 release was Sega Rally Online. It was just a digital release on PS3, but a physical release on 360. That was like the last, for me anyway, that was the last great arcade racer. And that was, oh my gosh, that was well over a decade ago, 12 years ago maybe. So it's been a while. Horizon Chase Turbo. Yeah, okay, cool. There it is. Yeah, I mean, not a bad game, right? Like fun. Yeah, fun. It's cool that there are at least a couple devs out there who are still trying to do that kind of thing. All right, so that's it for the questions tonight. Thanks everyone who submitted questions. You know, it's always fun when I get less questions. You know, there was that one week where it was 40 plus questions. When I get less questions, it gives me time to not only fully answer them, but to just kind of like go off on tangents. And apparently, when I asked a question about what you all would like to see more of in this show specifically, someone said more tangents from Bradley. So apparently, there's at least one person who appreciates my tangents. Okay, so let's talk about some project updates. Testament. All right, so the errata pack. I've got the cards all finished except for one. Let's see here. Hold on, let me pull up some stuff here. Our final count. Let me pull up Photoshop here so people can hear. All right. So, not that one. Yep, that one. Okay, so we are definitely reprinting boss card 2-5, and that is the before I think it said summon healing core, and it's supposed to be defender core. So we're reissuing that. We might reissue 2-7 just to indicate that ties aren't split for cool weather. I don't know if that's necessarily needed, so it's on my maybe list. 3-7 for Death Trap is the one that we're waiting to hear back on. It always has been a sort of oddly worded card effect under Death Trap. And so we had to just completely rewrite it, and we probably should have caught it before it went to print, but we didn't. And so we've rewritten it, and we had to submit it to Kuro for approval because we had to just completely rewrite that card effect. So that's 3-7. Fortress. So both fortresses. We've got our traditional Holland fortress, and then we had our alt art fortress, which was a Scale of the Dragon featuring Riordan. We've got Taunt, both taunts, the stock default Holland taunt, and then our alt art taunt, which was Piercing Diversion. also a Rear Dane skill. And then we are reissuing Power Crystal, which was an EX item card, which said, like, I think it said regain 1 force, but it should have said regain 1 buff. And then we're issuing a item card timing card. It'll have all of the item names for EX mode along with their timing, and it'll come on a single card. That way people don't have to consult the FAQ for that information. The other card that we are playing around with is Gate to the Abyss, because multiple people have pointed this out, and we didn't think much of it because it was in the original Japanese release, and we didn't think a lot of it. Maybe we should have. But on Gate to the Abyss, there's no special empowering effect on that card, but there was still a ×3 in the star icon next to the empowering skill text box. And it's kind of like, well, does that need to be there? So that's the only one that I've put on the list that I haven't run by the entire team. So that's a maybe. So as soon as Kuro gets back with us on 3-7, we'll make all of our final decisions of like what's going to make the cut and what's not. And then that'll be that. So I just talked with Heather 2 nights ago because she asked, where we were at with that. And I said, well, we're waiting on Kuro. As I mentioned, Kuro moves on Kuro time. But as soon as he gets it back to us, then that's it. Because I'm looking at the Photoshop files now, the Illustrator files, and everything's in here that needs to be in here. So it's really about, all right, yep, we've gotten approval for the card text on that one. Are we going to definitely include this one, or do we not need to include this one? Nope. Okay, there we go. We're done, and then we'll send them off to Heather. So that's Testament. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Wild Hunt Festival. So let me give you the journey we've been on, and let me pull up emails. Okay. So we got word last week. Let's see here. Almost a week ago, that the games had cleared customs, and now they were in transit to Fun Again, which is in Indiana. That's where their fulfillment center is. I got an email from Petra over the weekend saying, hey, you are going to get a deposit invoice. Before Fun Again can go ahead and start fulfillment on the orders, you've got to take care of the deposit invoice. I'm like, yeah, okay. That is the process. Yeah, just waiting on it. Cool. She was like, they're going to send it to you directly. And then if you want, you can take care of it. You can loop me into the conversation at that point, but it's going to come directly to you. And I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'm ready for it. So she sent that to me, and I'm thinking like, okay, they're going to send it to me Monday morning. I'm going to pay the deposit invoice. That's the only thing that's going to get in the way of them starting to fulfill orders. And so I'll pay it on Monday morning. That'll allow them to get started on fulfillment Tuesday. I sent this email today, 7 hours ago at 2:41 p.m. Hey, Petra, just doing my usual Wednesday check-in. Do you know if shipment arrived at the U.S. facility yet? And if so, what are we looking like in terms of a fulfillment timeline? Also, any news on international fulfillment yet? And now, mind you, Petra works for LionWing. She's our liaison who is kind of the middle person between LionWing and Fun Again, the printer. She handles all fulfillment. So she's with us. And she responded back to me a couple hours later and said, have they not reached out to you with the deposit invoice yet? Because we need that turned in before we can do anything. She said, I will check with Fun Again and give you an update as soon as they get back to me. And I said, nope. They sure haven't reached out to me yet. And she said, oh, okay. I will talk to Katie directly tomorrow at Fun Again when she's back in the office. I'll let you know when I find it. I'll let you know what I find out. So those were our exchanges over the course of the afternoon. This is me right now. This is me. When it comes to Wild Hunt Festival, this is me. Right here. Right here. This is me. So I haven't got an answer to my question. Well, because Petra hasn't gotten an answer of if it's shown up at the U.S. facility. I'm assuming it has, but no one's like told us anything directly. We don't have confirmation, and I haven't got I haven't gotten the deposit invoice. So. Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't gotten the deposit invoice yet, because I'm like, I'm thinking as a business person, like, hey, if I'm them, like, I want to get paid, and that's how I get paid. So like, yeah, I would assume they'd want money. So we're just waiting now to get word back from Fun Again. And Fun Again has been very responsive throughout this process. It's just like right now we haven't gotten anything for them. And I think that's because our main contact there, Katie, has been out this week. So I don't know if like her emails have been forwarded to someone else due to her being out of the office, or if they've just gone to her and clearly she's been out, so she hasn't had a chance to respond to them, but we'll be back in the office tomorrow. So I don't know what's going on there, and I can only speculate, but that would do none of us any good. So we had been told fulfillment would begin early this week, and it has not yet. Now, maybe, well, no, that I was going to say maybe international fulfillment began, but no, that can't even be true, because I haven't received any sort of deposit invoice. And I highly doubt a company as large as Fun Again is just going to start fulfilling games, out of the goodness of their heart. They're going to want to get paid for their work, rightfully so. So I'd imagine that nothing has started, regardless of where you are in the world, because I haven't gotten the form that I need to send them money. So that's where we're at with Wild Hunt Festival. I've got no good answers for people. I wish I did. It was a real victory, and I was so elated to learn that we had passed customs. I posted that, I think, on Friday in the chat. Like, we've cleared customs. So stoked. But there is another chapter in the Wild Hunt Festival fulfillment book that apparently still needs to be written. So I'd ask everyone, and this is a question and an encouragement as much for you all as it is for me, for patience and to be patient. Again, I'm telling you that, but I'm kind of telling myself that just as much as I'm telling you. We are closer than ever to Wild Hunt Festival than before. It's right, Frank. I mean, you know how much I love that phrase, because it's always true. It's really true in this case. Like, I feel like right now we've rounded third and we're coming home. We're coming for home base. So like, the end is in sight. We're no longer stuck on second trying to figure out how we're going to get the third. We've already gotten a third. We've rounded third. And so it's the final stretch. It's taken a little bit longer than anticipated, a little bit longer, but hey, that is this industry. I mean, that's always been this industry, but it's even more this industry in its current climate. And so like, sure, it's frustrating. I also recognize like everyone's working super hard to make this happen. So it's good to remember that, as much as we all, perhaps me more than any of you, want Wild Hunt Festival. Let's see here. Lanniston has some Maybe not like the kindest words for fun again. But yes, as you also said, Landison, at least it's coming and the freight nightmare is over. Yeah, I mean, where you worry about like shit really going wrong, product being damaged, product being lost, what have you, is in the freight shipping process when it's on the water and when it's at customs. That's where things can actually go wrong. From here, not much can go wrong. Now it can take a while for us to get to the finish line at this point, but nothing's going to go drastically wrong on a large scale. Certainly there will probably be, edge cases where someone doesn't get their stuff at the same time that everyone else does, or that shipment is missed, and then we just have to get that shipment to them once they reach out and let us know that that's happening, or someone's stuff comes damaged and we've got to send out replacements. Like that will happen, but I'm talking like on a large scale. We're past the point where big shit can go wrong, which is good. It just feels good. The only thing we have to do right now is play the waiting game instead of like the waiting and the worry game, which is what happens when your product is being shipped from the other side of the globe and is coming to you on open water. Let's see here. After setting up a game with warped cardboard, I'm excited to see those plastic character boards from Crawd. Yeah, I am too. Those were the only components that we were not able to see in the proofing process. The printer would not print them for us because the cost was too high just to print some prototypes. We saw pictures of what they would look like, detailed pictures of what they would look like. We saw detailed pictures of other plastic components that this printer had printed for other games that were extremely comparable to what we were asking them to print. But the first time we see them will be the first time you all see them. I mean, I'm assuming I'll probably get the product before anyone else, so I guess technically I will see them before anyone else. But still, this will be the first time for me as well. So this is a bit of a leap of faith. It was, it felt weird to not be able to see that part of this process. But COVID, man, COVID. Let's see here. Shinsuke, did Ramasan reply regarding releasing the assets for the backsides of the DLC content? I have not asked him yet, in all transparency. I have not asked him yet. I've had some other stuff on my mind this week with this upcoming project. I have not talked to Ramasan since 2 weeks ago when we talked about Puma Rhapsody, the summer-themed DLC Pack 2. That was the last time I talked to him. But I have to talk to him about a couple other projects. So I will be talking with him, probably not this week, but maybe next week. So that's Wild Hunt Festival. Let's talk about Gun and Gun. Well, not much happening with Gun and Gun that hasn't been happening the past couple of weeks. We're in mass production right now. We talked about how we're going to be running another event. That event is going to include Overheat cards. So Overheat will be put up on Tabletop Simulator. We're going to talk more about what that event is going to be in July. And then that event is going to happen, I want to say August. It could get pushed to September. I do have to be mindful about how I'm spacing out these things because we're also running the Embryo Machine fan contest in August. And I just don't want to I don't want to have all this cool stuff happen in August and then nothing happens, in September. So it is a bit of a game to figure out where you're going to move your pieces on the chessboard for the optimal move. But still, another tournament is coming for Gun and Gun, which means another round of prizes and another opportunity to play, get good, all that stuff. And it'll be cool for people to check out, the Overheat assets, play with them for the first time officially. I think people have probably played with some self-modified assets of Overheat, but these will be the official kind, which is always nice. Embryo Machine, yeah. So test printing of the mini starts next month. We'll be outlining the fan contest very soon. Not ready to reveal what that is exactly, other than what I revealed last time. And we like scenarios around here. We like scenarios. So Get your thinking caps on, figure out what that means. If you can figure out what it means, it shouldn't be too hard. You can maybe think about what that might mean for you if you're going to enter that contest. We had a really nice turnout for the Wild Hunt Festival fan contest, like a really, really nice turnout with really great work. And I want to be able to recapture a little bit of that with Embryo Machine. Now, I'm not trying to like recapture the same thing because like Wild Hunt Festival is a thing unto itself, and people are really jazzed about that product for what it is. So I'm not trying to like recreate that one to one, but it is fun when fans can get involved with something that you, the publisher, are then going to push out to people on a larger scale. And so to have an opportunity to engage with Embryo Machine in a way that you don't typically when you're playing, I think is cool. I think it's cool to get to know a game that you like so much in a deeper, more nuanced way, other than just knowing it from playing it. So I like that element of fan contests a lot. It just teaches people about your product in a different kind of way, and I think it creates a level of appreciation for that project that you wouldn't get just by playing it, and that's cool to me. So hopefully people will do some cool stuff there. Nothing new on Made Knight Saga other than some cool stuff is happening behind the scenes on Made Knight Saga. It is going to take time for this cool stuff to sort of bear out, which was my assumption all along. That's why we moved it. It might take a little bit more time than we were anticipating. But what we're doing behind the scenes on that, for why it was moved, is coming along smoothly. And then, and then our July project, as I said at the top of the show, unlike our other games, I've mentioned before that I try not to release too many, too similar games. It was weird last year, doing Testament and then following that up, 5 months later, maybe less, 4 months later, actually, with Wild Hunt Festival. As I mentioned before, the two approach the boss battler genre very, 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 very different. And there's a lot more story and lore around Wild Hunt Festival than Testament. Testament is just kind of like, it's the game, right? Even though I wrote a bunch of lore, that stuff doesn't make it into the actual game. It's like, it's a board game, right? And Wild Hunt Festival is very much so a board game too. It's just got all this supplementary stuff around it that allows you to, again, engage with it in a way that you wouldn't otherwise if, you just presented that game without any kind of story or narrative elements to it. So I try not to do too many games back to back. Sure, there might be a time in the future when, we threw up on Kickstarter a competitive card game. And then our next Kickstarter is also a competitive card game or some version of it. At the core, Embryo Machine is a competitive card game. You just happen to move around pieces on a map while you're engaging with the card game part. And Gun and Gun is a card game. So I guess you could say we did two competitive card games back to back, and we did two boss battlers back to back. But I really do try to keep things different, interesting, be it with, genre, mechanics, tone and presentation, design circle, et cetera, et cetera. So it's important that with each product and with each release, you feel like you're getting a new LionWing thing. Made Knight Saga is very different from anything we've done, as is, our next project. So that isn't to say, however, that in the future we're not going to either revisit previous worlds from games. It doesn't mean we're not going to revisit the idea of a sequel or something like that, or a prequel or whatever. Just because I like to do different things doesn't mean that I'm not going to return to things that people like. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to return to things that I like. It just means that I am, at the very least, always thinking all right, are we giving players a new experience with this next project? And sometimes the answer doesn't need to be yes. Sometimes the answer needs to be no. We're giving them more of the same experience they like and are wanting. That's totally cool with me. But I do like to offer up some new experiences here and there. I think about actors, I think a lot of actors has that one for me, one for you kind of thing, where I'm going to do this movie for me. Like this movie over here, probably not going to appeal to most people in the world, but it appeals to me. And so I'm signing on for this. And then after that, I'm going to do a movie for all y'all. Like I'm going to do that big blockbuster y'all want to see me in. That like I'm interested in, but it's like not at my core. But I'm going to do it for y'all. And then I'm going to come back. I'm going to do another one for me and another one for you. So it is a bit of like a one for me, one for you kind of thing that I'm always trying to think about. Let's see here. You mentioned solo tabletop RPGs. Have you been playing any? I haven't been playing. Let's turn that off. I haven't been playing a whole lot lately, especially of tabletop games. And this is pretty common. So how my cycle typically works. Let me make sure my camera's still in focus. It looked a little funny there. Okay. How my process typically works is in the 2 months leading up to a project, like before a Kickstarter goes live, I don't really play much of anything. I don't really play many tabletop games. I don't really play too many video games. I'm not engaging with a lot of my hobbies because I feel kind of guilty engaging with those things in the 8 weeks leading up to a launch. Because when I am engaging with those things, most of the time I'm thinking like, this is wasted time. I could be working on the project. I could be tightening something up. I could be adding to something. I could be taking away something that needs to be taken away. So because we're inside that window, and we're very, very, very inside that window right now, I'm not touching a whole lot. And if I am if I do get 20 minutes to play something right now, it's probably not going to be a tabletop game because I have a very specific way that I like to experience tabletop games. It's a whole experience for me. I typically won't like grab a game, set it up, play 10 minutes, and then go do something else. I really like to sit down with something, even if it's a light game where like matches or games of that game are short, 10, 15, 20 minutes. I like to eat at multiples of those. So it's more of an experience for me. And right now I don't have a lot of time to be able to do that. So the little bit of like hobby time that I have had, I've thrown into like a pick up and play like video game. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, then I'm gone. But when you're running a business like this and you're getting ready for a Kickstarter, and you just did 2 Kickstarters back to back. You got 2 kids, you've got a wife, you got all these things that you're trying to juggle. We're selling a house, we're buying a new house, we're doing all these things. You don't got a lot of time. You don't got a lot of hobby time. So haven't really been playing much of anything lately, solo tabletop RPG or otherwise. It's been a little crazy. But what will happen is, so I sort of have like my crash. So we'll go through the Kickstarter, and once the Kickstarter hits, whatever level you've been at leading up to that Kickstarter, for me as like the president of this company, I go up even further. It's like if I was at a 10, then I somehow get to an 11 because you have to be on the entire length of a Kickstarter. At least I do. To me, that's part of the success of a Kickstarter is the engagement piece. And if I'm not always thinking about that Kickstarter, I'm probably doing something wrong. Now, you do have to have moments when you're running a Kickstarter where like you just step back and you got to breathe. Because if not, you literally will find yourself checking the Kickstarter every couple minutes all day long until you go to sleep. I wish I were exaggerating right there, but I am not at all. So you do have to impose some boundaries and limitations on yourself to ensure you don't go down that route because that's not healthy. But still, once that Kickstarter hits, I crank it into a gear that didn't exist before. But then after that, once that Kickstarter is done and I write that final email of like, or that final update of like, we did it, thanks, this is amazing, then it's the come down period. It's the crash. And it's not a crash in a bad way. It's not like, oh, but it is a crash. I'm like, okay, I'm emotionally depleted. I'm physically tired because I'm not sleeping as much. I'm stressed because running a Kickstarter, in my opinion, is we run like 2 week Kickstarters. It's usually like some of the most stressful weeks of the year for me. So you're just kind of like done by the time you get to the end. And so I'll have my crash period where I like, okay. And then like for the first couple days after a campaign, I don't think about that game. I don't touch that game. I don't play that game. I don't work on that game. I don't talk about that game. We have no meetings about that game. I do nothing with it. And I go and engage with my hobbies a lot. And I do that for probably like the full week after the Kickstarter concludes. I don't touch anything. Usually I don't touch like anything work related that isn't essential. You know, I'll keep things running in Discord. I'll keep things running on social. I'll be, fulfilling orders and all that kind of stuff. So I'm still like running the business administratively and socially. But when it comes to like working on the games, no, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do that at all after a Kickstarter. So that is when I will get back to playing some stuff. And then because we put space between our Kickstarters, although I won't be like engaging with my hobbies like I will that first week after the Kickstarter, I will work back in those hobbies and I'll make time for it, which I'm not doing right now, obviously. So so I'm a Game Pass subscriber. I did download and last night played a little bit, probably like 15 minutes of Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance. Game's got some issues, but I was having a lot of fun with it. I only played it for 15 minutes, but it was very, it felt like vanilla Phantasy Star Online with the D&D motif. A very buggy D&D PSO game, a very buggy one, but a fun one. I mean, I got to play it more. I only played like 15 minutes, but that was pretty cool. Sin, hello. Yeah, you're usually right at the top of the show, and I'm getting ready to close the show. But thank you for joining. Hey, even if you can't join at the top of the hour, still jump on, join us. Doesn't matter if you miss the first 10 minutes, the first hour, whatever. Get in here, talk, throw up whatever you want to in the chat. I'm always watching the chat. But so those are our project updates. Again, be on the lookout for that July Kickstarter Discord codename channel teaser. That'll be dropping Monday at noon Eastern Standard. We'll see who can figure it out and who can't. I will not be providing any insight as to whether or not you got it wrong or right when guessing in the chat. So y'all are on your own this time. But it won't be too much longer after next Monday that we'll do the official reveal. Sin, so I'm sure you answered this. Is Kratia in the US being shipped out? No, it is not. I most definitely answered it. I went into great depth about why it is not shipping out right now. So when this goes up on YouTube tomorrow morning, usually around 8 or 9 a.m., be sure to skip to the Kratia section and listen to the latest on what's happening with the Wild Hunt Festival journey to backers' hands. It has most definitely been a journey. Anyway, so that takes us to the end tonight. Send in the chat. Sad face. Yes, it is sad. Yeah, go back and once this goes up on playback, check it out because I think that makes it even sadder. Yeah, so that takes us to the end tonight. This has been episode 21. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. We've had some new folks joining us live, which has been super cool. Thank you for that. Landison, Shinska, although Shinska's been here a couple weeks. I see someone else in the chat who I've never seen before, which is cool. Seriously, thanks so much, folks, for checking out the show. We do it every Wednesday where I just ramble for about an hour and a half. Sometimes we go 2 hours. Sometimes we go a little bit less than an hour and a half. It happens every Wednesday, 9 p.m. ET here on Twitch. We have a sister show, if you weren't aware. It happens most Mondays, definitely not as regularly as LionWing Talks. After all, this is our flagship show. But on Mondays, we have our sister show, which is called LionWing Plays, which, as the name might imply, is a show where we play LionWing games. We've been playing Embryo Machine lately. Before that, we were playing a lot of Gun and Gun. I'm hoping that with Wild Hunt Festival right around the corner, some people will be willing to play some Wild Hunt Festival on stream. I think, in fact, not to put you on Front Street, Sin, but I believe you may have thrown your hand up as someone who would be willing to play that game on stream. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe we were talking about something else, but I think that happened when you, Beans, and I were talking at some point. But that show takes place on Mondays, same time, 9 p.m. Join us there. Like I said, it doesn't happen every week. We were really regular in the beginning, and now we've not been as regular. That's been all my fault because we are getting ready for the July Kickstarter, whose name I nearly just said. I think that's my cue that I should wrap this thing up because I'm about to make some mistakes. I've been talking too long. Sin said, most of the time, yeah, we go about 2 hours. That's the truth too. And okay, so you are willing and able to stream any and all LionWing games. Yeah, I think Wild Hunt Festival would be a fun one to stream. Especially story mode would be cool, though I kind of want people to experience story mode on their own, but whatever. If people want to stream whatever they want, that's cool. I think it'd be really fun to watch someone struggle with challenge mode and nightmare mode. Just to see them. Perhaps this is perhaps my true colors are shining through here, but just to see them struggle and to suffer with those two modes, especially nightmare mode, I think that would probably be streaming gold. Anyway, so that show happens Mondays at 9, and yes, thank you for joining us tonight, especially our first timers, but of course, always our returning folks. Y'all are awesome. You show up every week. I promise that once this Kickstarter pops off in July, I'll be more present in the Discord because I know I have not been super present lately. I apologize. There's only so much of Bradley to go around, and I only have so many emotional resources to go around. And oftentimes, as I mentioned, preparing a Kickstarter is emotionally taxing. So, Sen said, well, the faster I get the game and play some, the faster I can prepare to struggle. Yes. Trust me, I'm trying to get these games to folks fast. But these are forces outside of my control, unfortunately. Yes, Bradley is 99% Kickstarter right now and 1% 15 minutes of gaming. I mean, truer words have never been spoken before. And I wish that were like hyperbole. I wish I were saying like, oh, I get 15 minutes to game like here and there. And I wish that was like an exaggeration and it really meant like, oh, I get like an hour, every day or an hour every couple of days. No, this really is like 15 minutes on occasion. This is like 15 minutes, like almost once a week. Just saying that out loud is kind of gross. I don't like, that's not good to hear, but that's where we're at right now. Anyway, okay. So we're at the end. We've been going an hour and 18 minutes. Thanks for joining us. We'll do it again next week. Y'all are awesome. I'll see you in the chat. I'll talk to you soon.